Hey everyone, it's Bruce, the part-time prospector here, and today we're going to be talking about massive gold nuggets. And the question on everyone's mind is, where do they come from and why aren't they found very often? Every prospector dreams of finding massive gold nuggets.
Gold! Gold! Beautiful gold!
And when I talk about massive, I mean massive. These are the ones that are hundreds, if not thousands of ounces in size, and take one or two guys just to carry them. Australia is a lucky country. Two of the world's biggest gold nuggets ever found have been found in Australia, both of them in Victoria. The biggest one was the Welcome Stranger, discovered in 1869, and it weighed nearly 2,500 ounces of gold. This is 90 plus kilos of gold. This is a life-changing amount of gold. It was so big, they didn't have a scale big enough to weigh it. So they took it into the local town and chopped it into pieces on the local anvil so they could weigh it. Unfortunately, that nugget sort of got melted down and it no longer exists today. The biggest gold nugget ever found in Western Australia was the Golden Eagle. It was found in January of 1937, about a half a meter down, and it was about 1,500 ounces in size. So a significant pile of gold found at Widgie about 100 or so k's just south of Kalgoorlie, between Kalgoorlie and Norseman. So big gold nuggets have been found in WA as well. In 1980, a guy in Victoria discovered the biggest gold nugget ever found with a metal detector, and he found the Hand of Faith nugget. Now this was a metal detector using technology of 40 years ago. So can you imagine what today's metal detectors can do? So if it can find a big nugget like that was almost 300 mils under the ground, basically a foot under the ground, we should be able to find them with today's technology. So where do these big nuggets come from? For over 150 years, scientists and prospectors and others have argued back and forth about where these nuggets come from. Even prospectors couldn't agree, and neither could the scientists agree. On one camp, there was the hypogene camp. That basically meant that all gold nuggets were formed in quartz veins at great depth, great temperature, great pressure, kilometers and kilometers and kilometers down in the quartz veins. And as the surface got eroded down, these nuggets came to the surface and basically popped out. Okay, that's their theory. The other camp was that the big gold nuggets found basically formed in situ, meaning formed in place with gold-rich groundwaters. So this is above the hard rock. This is into the regolith thing. This is the gold-rich liquids were flowing through the regolith thing and starting to precipitate into a nugget. And this grew over millions of years into the nice round shapes that we see of nuggets today. So as I said, this debate raged for about 150 years. No one could really get a definitive answer on that. And not so long ago, the CSIRO decided to try to investigate and sort this out. Now the CSIRO is Australia's national science agency, and together with one or two other Australian and New Zealand universities, analysed 30 gold nuggets collected from Western Australia, Queensland and Victoria. And they took these nuggets, sliced them into very thin slices, and ran some scanning electron microscopes over them to determine the crystalline structure of what was inside these nuggets. Now there's a very distinctive crystal pattern if they are supergene origin, and there's a very different pattern if there's a hypogene pattern. And so of all the 30 nuggets they analyzed, guess what? 100% of them,
100%.
and I'm saying 100%, exhibited the exact same crystalline structure and they were all hypogene. Every single one of them.
Every single one of them.
No matter where they were collected from, no matter where they were collected from, what environment they were collected from, they all demonstrated a crystal structure had been formed at great depth. So, unless someone can come along and give scientists a whole bunch of nuggets to test that have a different crystalline structure inside, we have to work forward with the theory that all these gold nuggets came out of a gold-rich vein somewhere nearby. So, okay, let's go back to the concept. This doesn't really help us in answer.
Well, it doesn't really help.
To the question of where did these big gold nuggets come from? We know they're coming out of the quartz vein, but a quartz vein can stretch for hundreds, if not kilometers and kilometers, of sometimes even more, multi-kilometers. It's not all solid gold. So why is some bits rich, super rich, and others, you're lucky if you can make any pay out of it? Well, there's three things. There's three things you need to have for gold to precipitate out of the solution and form on the side of the quartz vein, so in quartz veins. You need to have the right chemistry, chemical environment. You need to have the right pressure and the right temperature. Okay. Assuming the quartz vein is trundling along and it is going along in the correct chemistry, and which it means is the correct country rock is powering through, very little gold is going to be precipitating out because most of it's not the correct pressure and the correct temperature. You need all three to get massive amounts of gold. So that doesn't mean you won't get any gold. You will get some, because as the quartz vein goes along, there's weaving, humping and bumping, little bits and things like that. And so there's local pressure and temperature changes, and some of the gold is coming out. So the best scenario that the geoscientists have come up with, one of the best, and one that I work with, is that to get all three of these conditions tied together to get these massive gold depositions is when the quartz vein comes along and hits a pre-existing structure. That's another fault zone, joint set, whatever like that in the ground. Now, one or two things will happen. The fault will just, the fault bearing the quartz, the gold-rich solutions will just power straight through the old joints and
Straight through
faults. But what that'll happen there is actually that'll cause a void in the rock. So let me try and draw it, and we will see how this works out. Okay, we're over here at the drawing pad. And so we've got a pre-existing structure. So I'm going to try and draw a three-dimensional image. So let's say we've got an image that, a structure that's powering along. And it intersects this green thing, which already exists. And so what happens is that the quartz will go on to the other side, and we'll have, with this blue pen, the intersection, the zone of intersection of the two reefs. So I'll try and put some color onto this thing so it's easier to see. So this is the green, is the old pre-existing structure, and the red is the new quartz bearing structure running through. As this goes through, this blue line, oops, wrong color pen, this blue line is where you get a lot of gold precipitating out of solution. And this can dip in any direction. It all depends on the orientation of these two structures. If you can find these structures, you can work out the position of these things. Now, the best thing about these cross-cutting structures, they rarely occur in isolation, and they can be repeated over and over again. There might be another one out here, and another one out there. There could be another one out here, another one out here, And so over time, you may end up with a bunch of structures that run down like this, repeating gold grades. So if you can find one of these bonanza shoots, and sometimes they can be very small, like just a centimeter across, but they can be almost solid gold in places. And so if you can find one, and this structure itself here may only be 1 or 2 centimeters wide, you can find multiples of these going across, and you potentially could find a lot of gold. One of the mines that I worked at in the southern parts of the gold fields, or worked associated with, was that the structure can, as I said, there was 2 things that could happen. One is that the quartz could just smash right through the pre-existing structure, or 2, the structure could actually change direction. So let's draw another one here. So try and draw the same structure again. Now it intersects the green. But what happens this time is that the structure will actually roll into the pre-existing structure and then continue on. And at depth it does the same thing and continues on like this. And so you end up with a quartz structure. Hopefully this is making sense. That is actually going along, twisting and going like this. Now this zone here, from here to here, can be immensely rich. Mine that I worked around and associated with, this was hundreds if not thousands of ounces in every single one of these things that was intersected. And these things can be quite hard to find. They're very hard for mining companies to track these things down with drilling, because they run at weird angles, they can change, but they are immensely rich. So you can imagine when one of these structures, and I'll go back to this one here, one of these blue intersection zones comes all the way to the surface, it's going to be generating a lot of gold at surface. And so there could be situations where there's so much gold that, and not enough quartz, and there's going to be associated with iron and sulfides, everything else floating around, that when this reef starts getting weathered, it's going to start to lose its integrity, and actually big blocks of the quartz will actually start breaking free, and the gold will start to drop out of the reef. And so you get these big nuggets basically rolling away from the reef and falling into the first gravity trap there is. So how can you use this information going forward? Well, I guess find the direction of the gold. Look for these cross structures. They may be on geological maps. Good chance they're not. But that means that when you're out in the bush and you're walking around, look for jointed rock, massively jointed rock, that's basically sticking out of the ground. Sometimes it looks like spiky fingers sticking out of the ground. Look for that and try and determine the direction of the joints, and then try to extrapolate that position to where the gold-bearing reefs are, and try to look to that location point. Now, not always easy to do, because if it was easy, everybody else would have done it. But you're going to have to think in a bit in 3 dimensions here and try to figure out where these things are going to intersect. Now, hopefully they intersect on land that you've got access to, and if they are, it's well worth investigating. Because if you're the first person there, and it is one of these pipes coming to the surface, could be happy days. You could find more than enough gold to pay for the fuel. You could find enough gold to pay for the retirement. I really hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I've enjoyed making it. If you like it, please give me a thumbs up, and I'd love it if you subscribe. It just gives me some motivation to keep going on. So guys, thanks very much, and I'll see you in the next video.